The views and opinions expressed on this program do not reflect the company, owners, management, staff, clients, or partners.
It's Thursday, the 11th day of July, 2024. Welcome to Bermuda's Daily Talk Show. It's the Daily Hour brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy. I'm Jamal Hartman. He's Larry Marshall Jr. and Maya Palacio will be with us in a bit to bring you the latest in her news break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. Greetings, good brother. How are you?
It's a rough one, but I'm very grateful for life.
Yeah. I think it's I was just going through some old shows and going through my, like, you know how you go through the start of like the news break and how Maya or Teo begin it. And I was like, as much as they try to bring like these feel good stories, we can't escape our reality. And props due to both of them. You know, Maya brings a lot of good energy stories as far as sports and just community stuff. Teo does an incredible job of bringing you the corny stuff that's going on and the light. But despite what they try to do to lighten the mood and bring a sense of community and hope and success and celebrations of our people, there's a reality that just seems to be hurting our community so much. And someone said it, and I said it many years ago, that we also need to be thinking about first responders and what they have to go through. But in saying that, I just want to start off, and I don't like to do this. I think the whole United States thing of prayers, thoughts and prayers is just it's insensitive, disingenuous, especially when you can play a more prominent role in improving our community. But I definitely am sending just an abundance of love and comfort to the families impacted. It does hit different when people, when people who are dealing with this and going through this, and it's not something you wish on anyone. So that said, I just want to send an abundance of love and comfort on behalf of everyone at BCG and the Daily Hour team. I like when we ask, what can we do? And I say to people all the time, I don't think any idea is a bad idea, regardless of how we each respond or react. I don't think any idea is a bad idea. What I think is bad is when we're sitting around or, doing nothing to help that, or acting as if, well, I'm cool, it doesn't impact me, let me just go on with my life. And that whether you're black, white, regardless of the industry you're in such a small community with, you can't run if something goes horribly wrong. You can't just drive to another city or town 20 miles, 30 miles down the road. This is a part of who we've become. And it's up to all of us, regardless of whether you're directly affiliated, involved, but it's up to all of us to try to fix that. And so that said, we, as you know, have had many conversations lately regarding, our healing community and the like. And so greetings, everyone, and thanks for making us part of daily routine. A good one today as we're bringing on Dr. Jana Outerbridge from Mayvera Wellness. Like I said, we've had conversations about grieving and healing in our community. And we only thought it was right to bring an expert who practices this in the conversation. Larry and I, yes, Larry is an educator and a coach. Myself, I push buttons for a living. But we just thought it was inappropriate to have someone who deals with this stuff to be a part of this conversation and walk us through some guides to help our community heal during this time of mourning. The Daily Play is a name that place. So a bit of, we're in the world for Larry today. Don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. So let's do a quick question. We'll try to bring Maya in a bit earlier so that we can have an extended conversation with Dr. Jana. But I want to know, what role do you believe the government plays in all this? What role do you believe the government plays or has in reducing violent crime, if any? And if any, I think we tend to put so much on government that we fail to acknowledge our own responsibility. But what role do you believe the government has in reducing violent crime, folks? That's the question that we're going to give you. What role do you believe the government has in reducing violent crime? That's the question we'll ask right now. What role do you believe? And also, what do you expect from the premier's press conference today? What do you expect from the premier's press conference today? What are your thoughts on both of those? And Suzanne Ingham says, awesome Thursday, Jamel and Larry. Good to have you back again, Larry. So what are your thoughts on that? Audience, let us know, what role do you believe the government has in reducing violent crime, if any at all? Go ahead, Larry.
Yeah, it's the government is not in a great position because this issue is multifaceted, right? Many problems and many solutions that are needed, right? I think if we first look at it, for me, it's the home, and it's a lot of other things. But you did talk about the press conference. Let me address that first. I think that the press conference is gonna kind of regurgitate the same things that's already been said. It will be a plea for people to speak up, a plea to ask individuals to stop the senseless violence. I could probably, say what what's gonna be said right now. I think I'd rather them go out in the streets and talk to the individuals, who's involved and of the like, and it may not know who's exactly doing crimes, but you know what's going on. And I think most of the people that's going to listen to this press conference don't need the message. So really, is it in the best interest, or is it you're doing it because people are calling for it? And I question, if people's calling for the premier to say something, what is the benefit of it? So yeah, that's what I have to say on that part.
So you think it's what's that's called? Is it futile exercise? Is that the word I'm looking for?
I don't want to say it because at the end of the day, if one person gets something from it and does speak out, then I guess it's a benefit. But I think this same type of speech and message has happened for the past 15 years and nothing has came from it. I'm not saying that things haven't progressed in or investigations or people coming forward, but I don't think this came from a politician holding a press conference.
Indeed.
So at this point, what benefit is it other than just kind of and if people need a feel good moment from the premier, okay, maybe. I don't. I think if I was to see them go out in the streets and talk and say this has got to stop and we need to da 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 da, I would have more respect and think that's more impactful than standing in front of a mic and reading this, so we can all be impressed with how you pronounce words and stuff like that. Like, what's
the great orator. Yeah, no, I get it. Well, you know what? We can continue that conversation another day. I think we're getting somewhere, but I agree with you in this regard. I mean, what are we looking for? At the end of the day, you know how I feel about politics and speeches and talking. At the end of the day, I don't want you telling me what you've done for me or what you're doing for me. Just do the work. I want to feel it. And if I'm not feeling it, your words are but Just words. Let's bring my applause in for Daily Hour News Break. Dr. Jana Outerbridge coming up after that. Do not go anywhere.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning and a happy Thursday to you, MP.
Somewhat, yes.
Yeah. I mean, MP, I think I heard the Assistant Commissioner Daniels say yesterday that there have been 7 murders since May 24th. Did I hear that correctly?
You did hear that correctly.
Prior to May 24th, forgive me if I have my dates wrong, but this is where you guys come in handy. We experienced what I believe, which is still yet to be confirmed, but what I believe was Bermuda's first mass shooting. Was that in May or April?
I would have to look back in my notes to
earlier
scroll
in the
back. It was, I want to say May, but I would need to look back. But I do recall the incident you're talking about where
It weren't early in the year, Larry. That was definitely Q2. It weren't Q1. That's the thing. But I'm glad you said that, because I'm not going to call names because our group is between us, but as someone in the group said, and Maya, we've said it on this show numerous times as you've reported, is we have a tendency to forget so quickly, which is why I said when Deontay Trim, the mother of 5, was murdered, is I just hope that we don't forget her by this time next week. We tend to move on so quickly. We tend to get upset, go on, whatever story, live showing it, comment, our island needs prayer. That's my favorite one. Our island needs prayer. And I think I'm just going to say it. I think religion and prayer has messed us up so much in this respect that we have become so lazy to think that we don't have anything to do. Let's just pray to God. No, your God gave you tools to do work. Don't just sit back. I said to someone in May, no, when I pray, I don't ask for nothing. I just give thanks, man. I've got what I need. I don't need a billion, a million. I've got what I need. I give thanks for what I have.
Yeah. And to clarify, you're saying we need action as well as prayer.
Yes.
Like that. Yes.
You can't just sit back and pray and ask for things, folks.
Yeah.
You got to do the work. But I digress, Maya. You have a news break to do.
Indeed. Also, it's the makeup. I just want to say it is also the makeup of our society that also allows us or makes us forget as well when these horrible things happen. So, starting out your news break this morning. Good morning, everyone. This is your Daily Hour News Break brought to you by People's Pharmacy. We're going to start with a video.
Bermuda is currently navigating through both an unprecedented and difficult period, having to date experienced 7 murders since Bermuda Day, 6-week period. Yet we are only halfway through the 2nd week of July. This violence is occurring at a time when we all should be turning to each other as opposed to against each other, which is a real concern for our small island community.
So 2 men have died yesterday, making up what we said was the 7th death in 7 weeks in Bermuda. At 6:05 a.m. yesterday, BPS responded to an area in Sands and found that the 2 men were unresponsive. This is coming from Superintendent Joseph. Here's the next story.
The 2 men were taken to KMH, King Edward Memorial Hospital, for medical treatment. However, both men eventually succumbed to their injuries, which we suspect to be gunshot wounds. Police officers did attend this location where this incident occurred and discovered forensic evidence which suggests that a firearm incident had in fact taken place. Investigators commenced several actions and continue to pursue numerous lines of inquiry to help us understand exactly what has transpired.
Now, police are urging anyone who may have been there in the area, who may have CCTV, even ring lights on their homes, to check it, look at it, send them or speak to them anything that you think may seem suspicious. Even if you think it's not, just bring it up to their attention, because anything that you say is very valuable. They're also implementing these new operations as well that will probably hinder a lot of people's routes in the morning to work. So let's just tap into that one last time.
As we implement these plans, I'm asking residents to exercise patience and restraint as some of the more high visible tactics may impact you as you move about the island. In addition to exercising patience, residents may wish to leave home and work or wherever you may be at the time a bit earlier, as some of these tactics will include traffic checkpoints, the use of lawful powers of stop and search under PACE and the criminal code.
I just want to say this because I think we do get angry. I want to make sense of something for everyone in the audience. I just want to make sense. And I think Larry and Maya, I think you're going to feel what I'm about to say. I think. But I know how inconvenient it is. You're in rush hour going to work, right? And you're probably going to a job you hate. Let's be honest. 90% of you probably don't like your job, right? And I'm not being funny here. That's just the reality. But you're going to somewhere you probably don't like. You're trying to make time. You're not excited, and you're being stopped. Think about it like this here. You may say, well, anyone that's out there doing this, they won't be going to work right now. Folks, the way to get away with stuff these days is to blend in, right? So if you know that, hey, they ain't going to stop people going to work, isn't that? I'm sorry, but I learned this in primary school. The innocent will suffer for the guilty, right? That's where we're at. Why?
I disagree. I think we're past this innocent suffer for the guilty. I want some more targeted, and I guess it is also in conjunction. Okay.
Well, they said they're doing what they're doing. I guess it's to prepare people. But Larry, again, let's look at targeted. Bermuda's a small community, right? There are laws that protect people's rights.
Yes.
Right. And I think that's where the balance is, right? Because in one breath, you feel like the police know who these people are, right? They know who they are. And another breath is, okay, do we have the resources necessary to watch them 24/7? And do we also have the legal right? And I don't think the word's harass, but to monitor them without certain warrants in place.
Okay. And what I'm saying, because I think I will be one of those thinking people, and I think logically sometimes. I'm not saying if you agree with me, you don't. But these guys ain't up at 8:30 going to work. So while I get it, and then again, right, if that's the case, I hope that they track these statistics to say that this is working.
Okay. Fair enough. But I think one of the things that we mistook, and the entire community got outsmarted on before, is thinking what you just said. These guys ain't doing this. Those guns could be transported during that time to different spaces because we think they're sleeping and not up.
So my question is, because it's been stop and search in the morning and whatnot, how many have been confiscated during morning traffic, and how many been confiscated during another time?
Well, I know Maya has shared some reports from their thing where what they have found, because they say we got people on warrants or this person or that person. They have shared those statistics, but I don't think they shared anything as far as actual firearms.
They have shared when we have stop and searches during like major holidays and events and things like that. That's normally when it comes up, that they have captured some like weapons, either whether it be like knives, though, for the most part. I'm not too sure about firearms.
To Lara's point, I think that would be helpful because it would put people more at ease. Okay, well, they're finding stuff during this time, right? But if I'm not mistaken, I think one of the officers said yesterday that they found 6 functioning firearms since December.
I do believe that he'd said that, yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me close out my news break so we can start this conversation. So I'll just reiterate by saying that today at 12 p.m., yes, at the Cabinet Office, the Premier will be joined by Minister of National Security and the Minister of Health to, and this is quote, reassure the community and emphasize a message of reassurance and peace. And in other news, quickly, several app features have actually been adjusted for the SureLink app. If anyone has downloaded already, you would have found that already there was issues, including the issue of apparent missing tickets on the app in people's carts, but they say they have resolved that. And if you do need assistance, they do have a support center that you can call, and it'll be in the Department of Public Transportation. So you can call that 992 get anything that you need to get resolved as well in that matter. And then just with one feel-good story and congratulations to Carry Genetics as they represented Bermuda at MedTech Investing Europe Forum in London, earning the Best in Show award. Dr. Krico Weldon showcased Carry Genetics as being the Caribbean real-world evidence and engagement platform. She said, quote, "Our platform is pivotal in advancing healthcare research, expanding the therapeutic access, and improving patient care in the Caribbean." Winning this competition highlighted the importance of our work while solidifying our company as a viable investment opportunity for Global Lens. So congratulations to them.
Indeed, indeed. Congrats, Dr. Weldon. How's the weather looking today, man?
Weather's looking generally sunny. Really good day, hopefully, but still very high up there in 85 degrees.
Oh no, I have to speak to Sancha and Larry about that. What's the day of the year, Brett?
Today is International Essential Oils Day. My favorite essential oil is lavender. Wifey throws that in with the laundry sometimes. You guys have a favorite essential oils? And audience, if you use essential oils, yes, and name your favorite.
What if I can't pronounce it?
Try, Jamal.
It begins with an E, folks.
Eucalyptus? Eucalyptus. Oh, you know you're gonna say that.
Yeah.
That's mine as well.
Yeah, serious. I'm like the E one. That's my favorite. What's yours, Maya?
I would say the same, eucalyptus. I recently got a lavender scented pillow, though, Marshall, just for stress and doing so much as breathe it in and breathe out. But yeah.
I like this. Yeah.
I wish I'd have known that was today. I literally just ordered 5 that is right over there to the right of me. It's a peppermint, lemon oil. Anyway, essential oils changed my life, folks. Seriously. I mean, you feel different.
Yeah. They're very good.
Yeah. Real quickly before we go to break, Sancha and Larry against me. She disagreed with me as well. But Phil, good brother, made a great point. He says, if being stopped in search is too much of an inconvenience, then people need to speak up. Somebody knows something. Well, this is the thing. The inconvenience comes with, again, there are people who work real jobs in town that could be harboring certain people.
Okay.
There are vehicles that are involved in these crimes that people probably drive to work. What I'm trying to get us to do is think beyond our feelings and what annoys us, right? To kind of think, like if you're speeding down a highway, I see it all the time, right? The one thing you want to do is you want to be in the flow of traffic, because if that police officer pulls me over, you think they have to pull everyone else over. That makes sense? So you want to be, one of the things they said to me up the Bermuda Regiment, I mean, I didn't listen, but they said to me is the best way to get through your time up here is to go unnoticed. That's what they do.
Yeah. And to clarify, I'm okay with it. It doesn't bother me, or I wouldn't be irritated. If it has to happen, it happens. I just want to know, is it impactful?
Yeah. And Sandra Dorm, she says, but why put our few resources on East Broadway? Because they may know something that we don't. Yeah. That's the thing. You know, let's just keep in mind, and this is not defending the police. I don't know what the ins and outs of the police service are, but I'm trying to think beyond how I feel and what I think. And that it's important and crucial that we do that, right? But at the end of the day, Maya and Teo have reported that the police have busted this house at 7 o'clock in the morning while they're down East Broadway. Let's not act like they're just bothering people to go into work and not, go into these homes. They've done numerous reports over the last 6 months to a year where they've uncovered different things. So let's be honestly, take our feelings and emotions out of it and just think beyond us being inconvenienced. He did tell you, please leave home earlier or leave work earlier. They told you this.
Yes. And just to even reiterate that, like, again, Tay and I come on here, and as he said yesterday, every single time he's on here, he almost talks about every single collision all the time. Same way I feel the exact same, Teo. It's always something that's going on. And we reiterate the same thing, I feel like, quite constantly, the news pace in the same way. And maybe that even has to change. But also, if we realize if people aren't actually going to say anything to the police, something else needs to be done, because doing the same thing, like we know, insanity, the world is doing the exact same thing over and over and over and over again. And if people aren't talking to the police over and over and over again, but then expecting a change to happen, it's not going to. So something else needs to be put in place to enact some sort of change, some sort of difference.
Indeed, indeed. Maya, thank you so much. Thank you for what you do. We'll talk to you later, folks. Don't go anywhere. We've got Dr. Jana Outerbridge coming up after this. We'll be talking about, how do we heal a grieving people? Our islands in mourning. And I think one of the things for me is, as we speak about, this incident happens, we forget about it by next week. Is that part of our grieving, to kind of ignore things as they happen, or get to try to detach from them?
Yeah.
Is it part of the grieving process? We'll be back with Dr. Jana in a minute. Have a great one, Maya.
You too.
Let's face it, life can be a little wild, but shopping doesn't have to be. I choose People's, so that whether it's a prescription that needs to be filled, a toy for my little terror, or a gift for a new addition to the family, we'll see about that. Everything's available in one convenient location. Some call it People's. I call it my one-stop shop in the city. People's, we're here for you.
Welcome to the new bulk store, Lindo's Next Level. Wake up in the morning with enough coffee to keep you running throughout the entire day. Your pet at home deserves the best. Stock up on dog food to keep your puppy happy. Need a quick, tasty lunch at home? Your chicken nuggets will be jumping right out of the freezer. What's a movie night without popcorn? You can never have too much. Lindo's Next Level. Why go anyplace else?
It took 14 days to build your business plan. 6 months to build the courage to leave your day job. 3 weeks to find the perfect location. It took 10 days to outfit your space just right. And 1 day before your first client walked in the door. All totaled, it took you a full year to get your business operational. And this is just the beginning. To the entrepreneurs, the risk takers, the people that shape our economic community, we salute you and are here for you every step of the way. BEDC, providing knowledgeable, progressive, professional, and innovative support to Bermuda businesses.
Summer is almost here. Dive into the season with dog floats and dog pools. Enjoy 20% off West Paula's dog floating toys and shop our life jackets for safety in the water this summer. Get all your summer needs before the holidays and events begin. Don't forget to stock up on poo bags and check out Dicky Bags, the poo bag holder that locks in the smell until you can dispose of it. Remember, even dogs need sunblock, so visit Noah's Ark today, Bermuda's most trusted animal supply store, for all your summer essentials, and ask us about our rewards program.
Alrighty, welcome back to the big show. Larry Marshall Jr. I am Jamel Hartman. It's the Daily Hour, brought to you by the BAC Group of Companies, Medical Wells, Lindo's, and People's Pharmacy. Please don't forget to subscribe on our website. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Real quickly, we did ask the audience. Larry said it is International Oils Day. We got some favorites. We got Rose Essential Oil from Kiev and ABDA. We got lavender, wild orange, and what is that, bergamot or bergamot? You're using these words I can't pronounce. Another one, here we go. Yeah, frankincense. Okay. We got one on Instagram as well. Peppermint is my favorite oil, says Sandra Biaming. All right, so we've got some good ones. I do wonder, because I was actually told by a therapist to get oils to feel a certain way, because so it's interesting. We're talking about grief now, and you mentioned oils, because I think they do have a therapeutic impact on our well-being. Maybe Dr. Jana could tell us more. But without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Jana Outerbridge. We're talking about how can we help a grieving community, and let's just talk about grief for a second today, folks, because as a community, I'm sure we can admit that there are many in mourning. And the reason I say many versus we are all grieving is someone said it. We're not all grieving. There are people who are going to work this morning who have not a care in the world. There are people who are going to work that don't know what's happening because it just isn't in their space. And if they don't know, how could they possibly care? But let's give a warm TDH welcome to Dr. Jana Outerbridge. Calm down. Good morning, Dr. Outerbridge. How are you?
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on such a short notice. Really, really good having someone who deals with this. But before we even get into the conversation and even talk about you, we must ask essential oils. Do you use anything? And if so, what's your use?
I am definitely a fan of essential oils personally, and I think they do have healing properties. So there are certain oils, depending on the oils, you can actually ingest, and then some are for external use. So using them in your diffusers and things like that. So I consider them to be a tool, right? Everything's a tool coming together. So for those that are using essential oils, make sure you're using the best quality of essential oils. I think that's a whole conversation in itself. The lavender, the eucalyptus, the frankincense, I think is king of oils personally. So yeah, definitely, I'm a fan of essential oils.
The way she just pronounced those words that I can't so eloquently, right? I'm just like, oh, okay, doc, do your thing. But no, I'm glad you said that. And again, that's for another day. But don't be like me. Go on Amazon, got $2 oils, folks. You want get the.
I mean, there are other options. What you can do is do what works for you for now, but no.
All right.
There are other areas that you can work on
for sure
in the essential oil land.
for sure. But thanks again for doing this. And for those people who may not know, just tell people a bit about your background and Mayvera Wellness before we jump into the conversation.
Sure. So I am a counseling psychologist and I am the owner of Mayvera. So I've been in private practice for 4 years. My focus has, for the last 4 years, mostly been on women and girls and their journey across the lifespan. However, more recently, I've also started to focus on psychological health and safety, which goes beyond just the conversation of mental health, but how are we showing up at work? What our employers are doing? Do we feel safe and comfortable beyond just speaking about our mental health, but actually to really practice, having a really good, safe environment that is beneficial to our mental well-being. So that's a little bit about me at the moment.
All right. And thank you for that. So, again, Larry and I, we've had conversations recently about how do we heal a grieving community. We've had, quite a few due to what's been going on. But let's start with understanding grief. I think we mentioned the word, but do we truly understand grief, like the different stages of grief, how they, how do they manifest in each of us, right? And how does grief vary from person to person?
Okay, so thank you for that. And I'm glad that you actually talked about the stages of grief. So I want to say that more historically, a lot of us as professionals used to think of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who used to talk about the stages of grief. And so many of us still hold. However, figures that may have been in the process of dying, and those are the stages that they went through leading up to their death. And a lot of us still may use that in practice. However, we want to evolve our language a little bit. And I want us to think about sort of the tasks that are involved in mourning. And so some of that is being able to accept the realities that there's a loss versus us going through these stages. And it has to go through these stages in order to get to this point. We may have to start to accept this is where we are. This person, our loved one, is no longer with us. And then there's going through a grieving process, right? So grief would be, there's such a range of emotions that will come up for us. We may be angry, confused. It looks different in different people, right? Some people they just may completely detach. It doesn't mean, or appear to be detaching. It doesn't mean that they aren't having any of this grieving experience, right? It shows up different in different people at different times in different ways. And then we start to go through a moment of adjusting. What does life look like now that this person that we cared about, that we love, is no longer with us? And then we start to live life without this person, not forgetting them in any way, but what does life look like now as we sort of honor them and hold space for them as we move forward, right? So that may be an individual process that someone is going through, but we're sort of thinking about this as a community. And I think you said a little earlier, based on how we see the world and what we understand is happening in our community, there may be people that are going to work and not feeling any impact by this, right? And then there may be those that are. So I'm thinking proximity. If people that that are being affected may be more like you, or you may be close with or have closer ties to, then you may feel it differently if it affects your community or pockets of your community in ways that it may not affect others.
Well, speaking of it like that, and audience, if you have any questions or comments for Dr. Jana Outerbridge, please send them through. We'll get through as many as possible. That leads us into coping mechanisms, right? I mean, you just mentioned, people deal with it differently, right? What are some healthy coping mechanisms for dealing with grief? And how can we differentiate between healthy and unhealthy coping strategies?
That's a good one. So I think we have to recognize that things will not be the same. So you may have some restless nights. You may not be eating. There may be things that are showing up where what you was normally doing in your day-to-day living isn't occurring now. And we want to make sure that that's short-lived. That's not something that is beyond a few months, right? It's expected. Things aren't the same. You're trying to adjust. You're trying to cope, right? If you were doing things though that are intentionally maybe harmful, so where you may be harming yourself or engaging in risky practices that you wouldn't ordinarily engage in, and you notice that this is something that came up as a result of this loss, I think it's time to say, this is becoming excessive. I'm not managing this very well, and sort of taking a look at yourself and saying, it's probably time for me to escalate this and get some more professional help. Or there may be people that are close to you that are saying, I think you may need to talk to someone. And I think there's something about opening yourself up to that, because sometimes people can see things in you that you may not be able to see in yourself. And so that's an opportunity to say, you know what, this person actually loves me. They care about me. And they're saying, hey, loved one, let's get some help. I'm noticing that you're not coping very well, right? Because you're doing certain things. Yeah.
So that I love the way this is going in terms of just building towards something. And that brings me to, based on what you just said, support systems, right? How important is a support system during the grieving process? Like, what role do family and friends play in helping someone heal from grief?
It's a huge role, right? In the beginning, everyone's around you. Everyone is showing up for you. They're cooking you meals. They are there at night. They're spending time with you. And that's great. But I think it's important that we remember that our loved ones may need us to check in at different milestones, different holidays, different birthdays, and just kind of saying, hey, I'm actually really thinking about you during this time. Let's hang out. Let's go out if you want to, so that they're not alone, while they're trying to adjust to their new way of living, right? Without their loved one. Some people may turn to more of their spiritual beliefs and practices, which can be really helpful for them. Other people may look to talk to a professional and go into therapy and being able to go through the grieving process, not dismissing it, not putting it to the side, but going through that full range of emotion that comes, with grief. It's distress. It's everything that can come into that, right? But I have to say this, sometimes, there may be trauma that is associated with the death. And so we also have to make sure that we're addressing, the trauma that a person may be experiencing as well, connected to this death, to even allow them to fully go through their grieving process, right?
All right, so you just touched on professional help. Let's go there. Then should someone consider seeking professional help for their grief? And what types of therapy are most effective for grief counseling?
Okay, so when should someone go? I normally like to say give it a little bit of time. So maybe, giving yourself maybe a week or 2 or 3, sometimes a little longer, because some of it just may be a normal adjustment. However, you can go before that time. If you are in a place and you recognize I do not have the skills or tools to manage this. This first sleepless night or second sleepless night is really unbearable for me. Um, call. Call and talk to someone, because we can help before that time. I just also want to normalize that, you know, these things may happen. Now, for some people, when they are grieving, if you start to notice you may be seeing things or hearing voices, or, it's really distressing in ways that seem so outside of your control, just call right away. Get help. We have a list of services that will be available for you, that you can choose from, where you feel safe, where you feel comfortable, where you do not feel like you'll be judged by this person. These things are normal. They really do happen, and that's when it's time to say, I need help.
Indeed.
So, what are some long-term strategies for healing after the significant loss? How can someone find meaning or purpose after experiencing profound grief?
Hmm. Um, some long-term strategies. I think I talked about holding space for milestones a little bit earlier. We don't want to forget our loved ones. We don't want to forget the people that we cared about, but we want to start to think about life without them. So you may sometimes people may you see benches, we see trees, we see things like that. Maybe you'll start to have, at your traditional holidays, a moment of silence that honors, those that have now that we've now lost in the family. Ways to kind of keep their memory alive and keep them a part of the family in a healthy way. Those are things that we can start to do. We start to build new relationships with other people, right? That may be healthy. So we would have had our support systems in the beginning, but maybe we start to engage in new activities, other things that we can enjoy, that become a part of our lives, that are helpful for us, right? We can start to look at so many different things, but I'm speaking so generally here. And I think it's important that we keep in mind this will be different for each person based on how we understand the world, our worldview, what our support systems are, what our spiritual beliefs are. It's just going to be different for everyone.
Indeed. And thank you for saying that, because I you said it earlier, but I think it's important to keep reiterating that individually, as although we may be mourning as a greater community, individually we're going to address it in different ways based on our own beliefs and systems that we live by. So thank you for reiterating that. I'm sure you'll say it again before the end of the show.
I'm sure I will.
It's interesting because it's definitely a case by case situation, and it hits different this year because we have this week children involved, and we now have to talk about children and grief, and how can parents support children who are grieving, and what's the different approaches for helping children versus adults?
Yes, definitely. So children will respond differently. It's so difficult. Again, it's an individual experience, right? We're out for the summer, but you may start to notice your child is more distant or not engaging in the same way, not talking. And you may not relate that, directly to them going through their own grieving process, but that's exactly what it could be. I know we'll have the summer, but we'll be going back to school before we know it. Your child may have moments where their grades aren't the same. They're not interacting with their teachers the same. There may be so many things that start to happen that you may say, why isn't my child behaving? And your first response as a parent may be, you need to just start to behave differently. But actually, your child really may be grieving. So I think it's sort of knowing enough about your child to say, this isn't how my child would ordinarily respond, right? And maybe even seeking help for them as well. However, for some children, life may seem to go on as normal. And they go out, they play, they do everything. However, there may be a time later on where it comes up for them and they're like, wow, things happen to children as well, right? Even if it's not directly, it may be indirect, but they can still be feeling the effects of everything that's happening. They know what's going on. So it's also holding space for them and thinking, what does my child need? I also think for the parents, get help for yourself, and then you can also be well positioned to have a different level of empathy and understanding for what your child's experience may be.
Indeed. Audience, I just want to remind the audience, we'll get to your comments and questions. I see quite a few are coming through, so we'll definitely get to them in a few. So keep them coming through and we'll get through as many as possible.
As Jamal talked about earlier, and it's community grief right now, and a lot of people don't know how to feel. What are some things that can be done to lift the grieving part of our community?
Sorry, may you say that one more time for me?
All right, okay. People don't know what to say or feel, and what are some things that can be done to lift the grieving part of our community?
Okay. Not knowing what to say is absolutely normal, right? What we do not want to do is dismiss what someone else's experience may be. People at minimum want to feel seen, right? So if you are using any type of words of, well, you're going to be okay, don't worry about it. We want to hold back on language from there. Sometimes if you don't know what to say, you can be silent. I'm thinking about you. I don't have the right words to say. We can say that. I'm not sure the best way to support you. Maybe people can tell you, right? They can say, you know what I need right now? I just want to sit by the water and I just want to show up to book club or something like that, right? If you don't have the right words to say, then I think it's okay to openly admit that. And sometimes people try to shut down someone else's experience because it might be really painful for them. Or the other part of it is we haven't been taught what to say. When someone is in pain and hurting, just generally, we want them to feel better. So we give them words that we hope will help them to feel better. And unfortunately, what happens, that silences them from being able to speak about what their real lived experience is like, or the pain that they're feeling, right? This makes me think about the workplace. Everyone still had to wake up, and go to work. What can offices do? What can managers do? And I'm not talking about a checkbox exercise, just how I'm saying that the grieving process can be, long term and look different for different people. What are our HR managers and our supervisors, what is being put in place to allow for someone who may be grieving 3 months from now? They may be showing up today, but what is it going to look like later? Right? Are we prepared to hold that, to make sure that our staff are in environments that are safe for their well-being? Just how I talked about for the school child that will go back in a few months and be faced with the ever-going changes. It's the same thing in the workplace. Let's be real about the conversations. Productivity may not look the same. We may be, scrolling online a little bit more than we ordinarily would. Keeping those things in mind and noticing what's happening within my change behavior, you may be being affected by so much that's happening around you. I know I am. I have to admit that. Things have been really heavy for me this week. And I've had to acknowledge that within myself and make some adjustments to, what my capacity realistically looked like, to make sure that I was able to care for myself. I'm still human. And so I have to be mindful of that. And even if it's not direct, I'm feeling what the shift is within my community.
Yeah.
It's quite interesting because I looked at my level of productivity since Monday, and like it's just constantly on your mind. And I verbalized it yesterday. I was like, look, once you heard about it, I was like, I ain't done much. It's so many different things you touched on. We aren't taught what that looks like and whatnot. Good. Did you want to follow up, Dr. Jana?
I'm just good. I wanted to add to that a little bit. A part of this is because of our construct that doesn't allow for so much, for the flexibility that's needed with the range of human experiences that we have, right? And so we feel bad that we're not productive, or somebody's looking down on us like, well, why are you not doing this? What's not happening? But they forget that this is this human experience that has been created for all of us to exist in, that it just doesn't give us a break. But sometimes we have to give ourselves that permission to do that. I know that's not always easy in the workplace. However, I send people back all the time and say, so say this to your manager and manage it this way. And like, it worked. I'm like, yes, because sometimes no one speaks up and they don't have the language to be able to advocate for themselves appropriately, right? To make sure that their needs are being met. And we have to meet our own needs.
Excellent tip. And speaking of that, what are some practical tips for someone currently going through grief, and how can people support a grieving friend, family member effectively?
Do your best to just be there for them and show up. Sometimes people may say, oh, I don't need anything and I'm okay. And maybe that may be true in some instances, but continue to check up on them. What are the things that you believe that they will need? They need to eat. They may need to get out the house. They may have family that they're caring for. They may say, they may not say it, but can you take your niece, your nephew, your godchild and take them for the day and spend time with them? Think about how you can ease someone's load in this moment. If this is someone you love and care about. And I think I said it a little bit earlier, saying, hey, friend, hey, loved one, I recognize this is really having an impact. Let's see what we can do about getting you some professional support. It's available, it's accessible here within our community. And it will be my hope for those that are grieving, this message is for you, or those that may believe you're grieving and you're not so sure. If this is a loved one and this is someone that cares about you, that says, I want you to be your best self, see what you can do to maybe open yourself up to the opportunity that you're worthy of getting that help and support, and that you do not have to struggle alone. A lot of times we've been taught to muscle through, or to be resilient, or to only pray about it, right? And all those things, they sound great, but they're not real. I think we've learned that that's not the reality of all that is needed in order to be able to give ourselves the permission to actually grieve and determine what life looks like beyond today, beyond this year. You still have to go through a whole year of multiple milestones of birthdays and holidays and traditions. So even just getting through all of that, it's really important that you honor yourself enough to say, I deserve help. We are professionals who confidentiality is definitely something we are required to uphold. We are here. And like me, a lot of us are so passionate about what we do and wanting each person that comes in front of us to feel better. Take advantage of that. Like, we started this to make sure we could give back to our communities. So please come and talk to us. I've recently heard people say, yeah, but my business will get out there. I said, somebody told you that. Let's recondition ourselves. You haven't heard any psychologists sharing any of your friends' business.
Yeah, that did come up the other day on this show, though, confidentiality. Yeah, people did mention that, which was interesting because I hadn't even considered that.
Yeah. I think it's a tricky one in a small community, but some of it I think is a narrative that a lot of people have been sold, and it's far from a reality of today. I have no idea of, only been in the profession my last sort of 10 years full time, last 4. But that's definitely not how we're operating today. And we're legally binding to this. So we can't talk about it. We want to make sure that people are coming to talk to us and feeling really safe and comfortable. I don't think that's true. I haven't seen it.
I'm glad that, and that's reassuring. And everyone who was tuned in on Monday, I hope that what she just said reassured you that there's a level of confidentiality, in speaking with a therapist.
Let me just say this: so you can find a list of therapists. You can go into the health council. You can see who's listed, who's registered, right? You can choose from lists like that. That helps you to feel even more reassured. Now, we do have a lot of, counselors, and ask them what they're required to do. You can interview your therapist. I'm going to be doing some work on this later in the year, so hopefully you'll bring me back to talk about it. But I'm going to be showing people how to interview your therapist to know, are they going to be able to hold your information, right? But yeah, on the grief, give yourself permission to go through the grieving process.
Mm-hmm.
We are eliminating the stages that we've historically talked about, and we're moving forward to just going through your process and accepting that loss.
Okay. So you mentioned earlier grief and mental health. How can unresolved grief impact mental health, and what are the signs that grief is leading to more serious mental health issues?
Mm.
So we can have that prolonged grief disorders that can start to show up if it is unaddressed. It's so hard because sometimes some things can be so multi-layered if we have trauma and different things that are kind of at play at one time, which again is a reason why talking to a professional and helping them to and allowing them to determine what is this sort of prolonged grief experience that you may be having. How do you know that it is grief versus something else? Here's my thoughts on this, just off of the top of my head. If you are living life in a way that does not seem like it's serving you well, then something needs to be addressed. If you don't feel like you're living the quality of life in the way that you would have historically been living before the death of this loved one, then we may be going into more of a prolonged grief experience. Now, you may be looking and it's 5 years and you thought, wow, it was so long ago, it's not impacting me anymore. It must be something else. No, it actually could be. That could be the timeline that we come up with where there was a change of events in your life and you did not give yourself the real permission you deserve to go through the healing process, the grieving process. And so it could be so many things that are starting to show up. You may be more frustrated and you may be short with people. Your communication may not be the same. There are so many things that can become your productivity at work. And like I said, this can be even months or years from now where that can be affecting you. And it's different for every single person. For some people, this may not be the case. They may go through the grieving process and start to live life without their loved one, honoring and holding them, in the space that they can, and life goes on. But it's just different for each person.
Yeah, indeed. Let's go to the audience, Dr. Jana. And again, audience, if you've appreciated this conversation, found it helpful, let's get this conversation in front of as many people as possible. So make sure you give us a like, a love, follow. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues, your managers. Yeah.
Please, workplaces.
I'm gonna
all day.
I think that was something that she said that I think even those business owners who have employees need to be understanding of, right? I want to come back to that once we come back from the audience, but Shawnette Bell just echoed, she says to have a great support system is essential. Without them, I don't know where I would be. And she goes on to say, Dr. Jana is awesome. Mark Arthur C. Phillips, he's asking Dr. Outerbridge, how do we talk about mental health with your family?
Oh, wow. How do we talk about mental health with the family? Words mean things, right? So maybe because the term mental health is difficult for people to understand, we may not want to start there. But let me just say this, we all have mental health, right? Everyone has mental health. So I think what we're actually really talking about when we may be thinking about more complex illnesses that people have is a very different conversation. So I think there's something about with family saying, are you living your best quality of life? Are you seeing the world in ways that you think are helpful? Would you like to improve in these areas? Maybe some very open questions around the table. And then maybe we can pull that back to, well, you know what? We all have mental health. We all have access to having, this spectrum, this continuum that we're all on. And sometimes we may be feeling a little more healthy, and other times we're not as healthy with our mental health. And so when we're a little bit more on this end, then that's when it's okay to say, you know what? Just like I would go to the doctor if I had a little ache or I had a little something here or something there. It's the same way that we would go to our mental health doctor to say, I'm a little over here and this is impacting me in this way. I'm not so sure. And then when you go to your mental health doctor, you start to move a little bit more in this direction because it's like, I'm a lot more healthy now that I was able to get that out. I realized I wasn't speaking up for myself, and it was causing me to isolate. And then I was avoiding certain tasks that I used to enjoy. And now I'm doing those things again because I focused on my mental health and moved a little bit more in this direction. Now, like I said, we may have diagnosis with mental illness, and even then, we still all have mental health because although you may have an illness, there are times that you can still be quite healthy, right? Because you're having all of the support you need. It may be, you're living, you're taking care of yourself, you're exercising, you're eating good, you're taking any medications, you're in therapy, all the things that allow you to have good mental health, although maybe having a diagnosis that's an illness.
Interesting. So I think it came up the other day on Monday, Larry. Tell me if I'm wrong, but one of the recent shows we were talking about, should people be getting mental health checks like they get their annual physical checks? I think that came up on Monday, and I want you to touch on that. But I think this was one of the concerns that came up. Sherilyn Johnson's asking, does insurance cover grief counseling? And I think people were on Twitter this week saying that, insurance companies should be mandated by government to cover mental health like they do physicals. And they're like, let's talk about all of that right now. Does insurance cover grief counseling? But also your thoughts from your expertise on the seriousness and people being allowed under their insurance policies to get annual mental health checkups.
Okay. Ooh. So the coding around grief counseling with insurance is a tricky conversation. And yes, so it's we need to improve in that area. So insurance companies, if we can do something in that regard, that would be helpful. So the answer to that is the coding can get a little convoluted when it comes to actual grief counseling. Is the first response. And let me be clear. The second question was
she was asking, does it cover grief counseling? But also, should it be mandated that people get mental health checks once a year, like they get their physicals once a year, or a dentist every 6 months?
And so I think mandated is a bit tough. I think, if we start telling people that they have to do this in this way, no one really wants to be told what to do. Some people do not even go for their annual physical, right? Or dental check. So mandated, I'm not so sure. Do I think that there should be space that allows for those individuals that would like to go to have a mental health check every year, that is in place? Then my answer to that is yes, right? And there could be certain questions that we'll ask and certain assessment tools that we'll use to be able to feed back to each individual to say, this is where you've scored in this way, holding some space for them to reflect on the year and maybe considering some areas that they can work on. I think that would be a great thing, and people do it. Do I think these things should be covered? Of course. And I know everyone doesn't have access to the exact same resources, but there are people that 100% do pay to have, their regular sessions, but also just check-ins from time to time. And so I think it is about access to resources, financial resources, to be able to make that happen. I think more people would take advantage of it. Sometimes people argue with me on this, but I think more people would take advantage of therapy if they felt like they had the financial means to do so. And unfortunately, some people don't have the financial means. However, some people choose where to put their finances. So it just all depends.
Real quick, do you mean take advantage in the literal sense, take advantage, or take advantage almost like where it's negative?
Not literal, no, like actually access the opportunity to go to therapy or to have those resources. Not literal. They would go and use it very well. And I can only say that because there are times where, and I think most people know this about me, I've offered a lot of free services, completely free. It's not something I publicly go and talk about, but I've definitely worked with people over extended periods of time for free. And I know that they use it and they use it well,
Mhm.
And it's, if they could have afforded it, they would have. So they wanted to be there. It's just, did not have the means to do it.
Got quite a few more questions from the audience when I get through. Dr. Zelda Severin, she's asking, great information on individual grieving. What are effective strategies for communities healing from trauma?
Well, I think some of it is the acknowledgement that there's trauma that has existed in our community. I think sometimes people want to dismiss it, even in conversation, right? But there are some major events that have happened over the years that have an impact on us, that have an impact on me, that have had an impact on how safe I may have felt at certain events or activities, where I would choose to go and not go. I mean, I think we have to be able to sit with that and say, it's not that we wouldn't enjoy this event. There were times that we would choose not to go because of what our experience has been, directly or indirectly, maybe how it was shared in the media, how it was talked about, and that having an influence on, well, I'm not going there because there might be this. And my friends and I, we talk about it all the time, like, I'm not going to this event because X, Y, and Z may happen, right? And it may not, but because of things that we've seen or we've experienced, we may not go. Right. And so our community has very much so been impacted by a number of events over the years. Businesses were impacted. I was talking to business owners at one point who said, I had a successful business at this period of time, but because of different things that were happening in the community those years ago, it impacted the quality of the business and those patrons that would have ordinarily attended, right? And so how you see and understand the world is still impacted 10 plus years later.
Yeah. Couple more questions. Kia Vinay BDH, can you possibly list 5 common things Bermudians say when they are dealing with grief?
In regard, five things people say. Am I saying, are we thinking about ways to support them or ways that we may be a little dismissive? Maybe you could clarify that for me, just so that I'm clear. Or maybe you all have interpreted different than me.
No, I don't want to. I don't like to speak for people. If you can clarify, Kia Vinay BDA, but I'm possibly thinking, what are 5 things that are common? Like, oh, for me, I might say, I'm good, I'm okay. Like, is everyone that dealing with grief, do they come in and be like, no, I'm okay, I don't need this, but they're encouraged by family or friends?
Yeah. So okay, I can take it that way. So yeah, I'm good. I'm fine. I'll be all right. What else maybe say? Or we don't say anything at all. Silence. Just, start avoiding, which isn't something that we're saying. Or I'll pray about it. And let me be clear, this isn't that prayer isn't part of the solution. I think just like I talked about tools coming together and it's the same thing. However, we want to make sure we're putting some action behind that as well, so that it can all make some real changes coming forward. Was that 5?
Maybe? Yeah, I don't know, but I think she did say that. She did say that, like that. That's what she meant. I think we got there. One last question from the audience. We've got Rosalind Famous. She's asking, do you know if there are support groups specifically for relatives of victims of violent deaths? Now, I want to end it on this in terms of, obviously, we've had 7 murders since May 24th, right? And I've often said that, it's not the people who've perished who are impacted. They're not the ones feeling the pain. It's those who are left behind, right, who are really feeling it. And I know that Gina Spence had done something with, grieving families and the like. But do you know of any other support groups of relatives, and how impactful can that be for people?
Definitely. So support groups are very impactful just generally because you're having a shared experience with someone else. So it reduces the likelihood of you feeling like you're the only one or you're alone. While it's not the exact same experience, there is something powerful about the group dynamic. So you did mention Gina Spence. the Women's Resource Center as well has a grief support group, and I will definitely speak on that because Jaleese Allen, who is a thanatologist who specializes specifically in grief, is the facilitator of that, and she also works within Mayvera as well. So she's very knowledgeable about this topic. We also have the mom support group as well. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that. Those are the three that come to my mind right away. And then it depends on the type of loss, because I think you have, so we're just talking grief in general. You have PAL support groups. It's a number of other support groups that are out there as well that people can access, depending on, the type of death and loss of the loved one.
All righty. And I want to go to this is an interesting comment. Michael Daniels, he says, here in 2024, does the average person have a healthy concept of why they exist? I know in grief, people start to question a lot, right? They start to question why such and such, why not me, things of that nature. Can you speak to this a bit about what that stage and state it means?
Yeah, I mean, I guess we start to have some guilt, depending if there's something. Could I have said something? Could I have done something? Did I miss, what was happening?
Mm-hmm.
And here's the thing. Sometimes we do the absolute best that we can, and there's nothing that we could have said or done differently, within that moment to change that. Some things are completely just outside of our control. We were not the ones that did this or were a part of it. And so we have to be able to give ourselves some grace of, you loved this person, you cared for this person, you did what you really could in that moment. I'm speaking very generally because that's going to feel so different for each individual, as to what that guilt may be like. Because some people may say, no, I really could have said or did this differently. And so sometimes we have to give people space to be able to process that and even forgive themselves if they feel like they didn't or could have done something differently, but and learning what that looks like for them moving forward.
Indeed.
A tricky one. Yeah.
No, got you. Real quick, before you go out, obviously I don't want to keep you all day. You've got clients to see, but let's talk resilience and recovery for a second. How can people build resilience during grief? What are some examples like of people who, is it resilience or is it like holding stuff in? Right? How do we know the difference? But there are some people who you might think about it, man, they just experienced that. They're right back to work. Is that a coping mechanism?
Yeah. Resilience. It's always an interesting one, I think, for me. I would say we need to externalize it. If we are holding it all in, I just wonder what the impact is on even on our physical bodies, on our immune systems, on just our quality of our physical body as well, when we are just holding it in. And those things may not show up right away, but it could show up later because we haven't allowed ourselves the opportunity to use our support system, not even just professional therapy, but just really talking to our friends and getting out how we really feel, having a cry with someone if we need to. And I know everyone doesn't cry right away or at the same times, and you may not, right? But just being able to get out the emotions that are connected to this experience when we are just moving forward, it may not show up, you think, in your mental well-being, but your physical body will start to give you telltale signs that something hasn't been processed in the ways that it needed to be.
Interesting. Yeah. That makes so much sense. You went over a list earlier. Before we let you go, can you just remind people of the resources, the different therapists and groups that they can, you can recommend for people who are grieving and open to receiving help?
Sure, sure. So I'm going to start with Mayvera, like I said, because I'm here and I also have two other counselors that are also available, and we are ready to offer support at this time. And so you can check us out on all of our social media. There are links there. You can book free consultations immediately, and we'll be able to help you to think through your next steps within these free consultations. We have the Women's Resource Center. We have Gina Spence Productions. We have Mom Support Group. We have Mass Man, that is, dedicated, focused on just working with man. Who else do we have? There's such a list. I've seen a lot of lists that have been going around. But I think, there are also different organizations that, depending on the type of death of your loved one, that you can access those resources as well. We have MWI that, has resources as well.
All right.
And then for children, we have Simply Bloom, for example, who also very much so specializes in working with children. So we are all here and ready and available to offer some help.
I promise this is the last question.
That's okay.
Before you head out, what would you say to the community? Again, 7 murders since May 24th. Last year, as of the end of June, we were 11 road fatalities in for that first half. So it looked like we were going to set records. However, things slowed down. People are hurting right now. There are a lot of people hurting. There are some people who, try to detach and disconnect. So they don't even, want to feel it so that they can get along with their own lives. And understanding all of this, right? I don't blame people. I don't knock people for being detached, because a lot of people are struggling just to live their own lives. They have their own struggles, their own things that they have to deal with. So what would you say to a community that is so it's delicate right now? The mood is delicate, it's sensitive, and people just don't know what to say or do.
So my words to the community, I think, if I sum it up, is there are a lot of us that are feeling the heaviness and the gray and the dark clouds that are around, myself included. And I would encourage all of us to give ourselves some grace, because we all have a range of different emotions, from anger, confusion, frustration, disappointment, sadness. If you're experiencing all of that within a day, with just everything that's going on, I would say that's completely normal, because what is happening at this time with these dark clouds is outside of our norm. So be really kind, be really gentle with yourself. I would say to live a very awareness-driven lifestyle right now. And what I mean by that is, what needs to be a priority in your life? Consider that and focus just on that. You may not be able to take on the same capacity of what you would normally do. So if you can go to work and just get through your day, then go to work and just get through your day. If you may have to buy takeout tonight for your family because cooking doesn't feel like you have the energy for it, then please give yourself some grace and give yourself some permission to get through this moment in the best way that you can, as long as you are safe. You are focusing on your mental well-being, your physical well-being, and caring for yourself and your family and those around you in the absolute best way that you can, until we're able to come up with some more answers, some more solutions, some more ways of being able to manage as a wider community, which all of us have the opportunity to access something that we can do to contribute to the change. Some have more power, and those with more power would have the opportunity to really dive into more of these changes. But what can we do within our own little circles to be able to make some changes within this community? So just be gentle.
Indeed. Thank you so much for that, Dr. Jana Outerbridge. We appreciate you. And please don't be a stranger, because some of the most important conversations involve that work that you are doing. So have a wonderful day, and we'll be in touch
Thank you
soon.
for having me. I appreciate it. Have a good one.
Thank you. Dr. Jana Outerbridge, folks, if you appreciated that conversation, as sure some of you did, because as I look at the comments, we've got Nicole Hassel says, wow, this doctor is fantastic. Thank you for all that you do. Sherry Vanderpool says, thanks, Jana, for this conversation. It's so needed. And we'll share some more once we come back. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a quick break, come back, wrap up today's show. So stick with us 55 seconds.
Take a look at our workwear for construction workers and tradesmen. Durable, stretchable in all the right places, and plenty of options for tools and accessories. Paired with our wide range of tough and comfortable footwear, you can't go wrong. As you can see, Medical House really is a one-stop shop for everybody. We can't wait to see you.
See it all at our new expanded location on Bakery Lane.
All right. Thanks again to Dr. Jana Outerbridge for joining us today. And thank you all for being such a great audience, engaging. If you appreciated the conversation, the discussion, please make sure you give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Make sure we get it to in as many people's faces and ears as possible. Again, I appreciated the information that she shared. Thanks again to the BAC group of companies, Medicals, Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we can have these conversations with you on a regular basis. It is time for the Daily Play, brought to you by Bermuda Trivia, now available at stores throughout Bermuda. Bermuda Trivia, the game show, launched on Monday. You can check that out on bcgtv.com. If you haven't already, want to be a contestant and win the big prizes, win actual money, then you can email contact@bermudatrivia.com. All right. Today, it's a Name That Place. Larry, are you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, folks. If you get this before him, then you will be entered into tomorrow's draw. One person, the first person. All right. Here we go. Oh, this is easy. What is the largest country in South America? That was so easy.
It's always trying to downplay my success, man. You know,
I say it easy all the time, and then Sancha and Sherry show up and prove me wrong, right?
That's what it is.
Yeah, they proved me wrong. Well, nobody got that. Rosalind got it, but you said it before she could get it out. But let's wrap up today's conversation, Larry. Final thoughts. I mean, obviously, another tragic situation yesterday, and the conversation with Dr. Jana Outerbridge to make sense of our emotions at this time. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. You know, we touched earlier on the government and what their involvement looks like. And, you know, it's difficult for them too, because they are also a part of the community, but I do think they have a part. And we don't kind of even want to make it to be about them. What Dr. Jana spoke of, you know, I think what was so important just now was that I was just able to listen and take in. Because again, Jamal, we're part of this community and it affects us. And, you know, what I took from it was that it's a lot of help out there that's available, and you don't have to do it on your own. And if you are someone's support system, help them by, you know, encouraging them to reach out, or you may have to be the one to reach out and help facilitate that process. So, you know, to Dr. Jana and everyone who is, you know, in that field, Dr. Gina Spence reached out in our comments also. And, you know, if you're in that field, you know, just kudos to you. Continue doing the work that we're doing. I think one day we would love to think that that type of work is not needed, but that's not the world we live in. So
yeah, it's like charity. I always say, you know, I'd love the day when we no longer need it, but it's just not the world we live in, right? I say this, you know, I accept that we all grieve differently. You know, the way I grieve is going to be very different from how Larry and then others grieve as well. One of the things I've noticed when something tragic happens is everyone wants to come across as a philosopher or a counselor or an expert. I felt it was important, and thank you to Dr. Jana Outerbridge for on such a short notice. We only asked her this week due to another death of someone who was supposed to come on, if she was able to come on and add value and her expertise to this conversation. I'm not an expert at much, folks. So it's important for us to bring people like her on to make sense of how we're feeling and the emotional state that we're in. My hope is that through these conversations, we can heal together. As Larry said, I'm not immune. He's not immune. The police are not immune. We're all impacted. This is our community. We're all impacted by it. I don't know how to approach Larry versus approach another person, but what I can do is give them grace, give them space, and allow them to engage me how they choose if they're grieving. And I think that's what's missing for us is, when I lost my mom, it was overwhelming. I had 900 something texts. It was overwhelming, right? For some people, that may make them feel good is what they need. For others, it may be like, oh, I just need space. Just give me space. So I just think respecting people and letting them know that you're available, right? And not just during that time, because as Dr. Jana said, sometimes it's like we're there and then 2 weeks later, you don't hear from them, right? Months later, it happens. So give people space. And if they don't require space, just allow them to feel like they know that you're there for them. I think that's what it comes down to. But also, as Larry mentioned, Dr. Jana mentioned resources. If you're able, if you're interested, speak to somebody. It's nothing like having another person to speak to. Larry, you've got some daily inspiration for us?
I do. So it's true. When it's all said and done, grief is the price we pay for love. That's from E.A. Buchianari. I'm like Jamal, I can't pronounce that one. But during this time, I thought that quote really, so it's true. When it's all said and done, grief is the price we pay for love.
No, I think that's very appropriate. And folks, thank you. Thank you again. If you appreciated today's discussion, our guests, give us a thumbs up, a love, a like. Make sure you share the conversation with your friends, your family, your colleagues. Send this around in your WhatsApp chat groups like you do things that we probably shouldn't. Yeah. I hope that helps. All right. Don't forget to subscribe on our website, thedailyhour.com. Follow us on all of our social media channels to stay up to date with all that we have going on. Help us grow beyond the mic as we do our part to continue to improve our community. Thanks again to our partners, the BAC Group of Companies, Medical House Lindos, and People's Pharmacy for ensuring that we're able to do this with you on a daily basis. As always, we appreciate you, we love you, and we thank you for making us part of your daily routine. If all goes well, we'll be back to do this again with you tomorrow. He's Larry Marshall Jr. I am Jamal Hartman. Please do make it a safe and a great day. We are out. Peace.